They say if you can't find it at the National, it doesn't exist. So I flew to Cleveland to see if it was true, and I can tell you now that phrase is total bullshit. I spent 2 days at the 2024 National Sports Collectors Convention, a total of 12 hours on the show floor, hunting for cardboard treasure. The traffic outside the IX Center was nuts. The lines were long, with nobody seemingly in charge of where to go and what to do. But with my father in tow as trusty wingman, we burst forth into baseball card heaven just as the show opened to the public. First choice at the card stacks. If you've never been to the National before, all I can say is, wow. Dealers as far as the eye can see in every direction. Millions of cards. Just perfect. The very first table, dead center in front of the entrance, had a 1933 DeLong Chuck Klein sitting there for $350. And I was tempted, was I tempted, but I didn't want to blow that much money in the first 8 seconds. So I demurred and asked to see his pile of 1934 Goudeys, as I needed both Phillies high numbers from that set, George Darrow and Dolph Camilli. He having neither, I was on my way. There are so many tables, it's hard to stay focused. But with Sancho Panza advising this Don Quixote, we made a plan to explore section by section. Good advice, as no more than 10 minutes into the show, we came upon a vintage dealer with piles of unpolished diamonds. My kind of stuff. The first of which was the 1935 Goudey 4-in-1 Phillies card, a pretty rare bird amongst a flock of rare birds. Not to be outdone, a stack of 1936 Diamond Stars coughed up Dick Bartell here. Bartell had been traded to the New York Giants by 1936, but the image shows him in his Phillies jersey, so I gotta have it. With the ball now rolling, I asked for the stack of T205s, and boom! John Rowan. Just a few minutes into the show, and I had pulled the biggest card from my wish list, and the last card needed to complete my T205 team set. And this very rare, hard-to-find tough short print was only $30? Yeah, it's creased, but $30? It's such a rush to flip through stacks of baseball cards hoping to pull that one elusive unicorn you've been chasing for so long. Who needs to open new packs when you have this? This is just as good. My show was made, and I had just arrived. Before we settled up, I flipped through his 34 Goudeys, but no high numbers. With John Rowan and friends safely in my pack, off we went, tilting at windmills. I stopped to salivate over an 1887 old Judge card of Hall of Famer Ed Delahanty. Someday. And at the National, so often do you casually pass things like complete 1986 Fleer basketball sets, complete 1933 Goudey sets, an 8.5 mantle next to a 9 maze. No biggie. It's everywhere. Back in my price range, I started to check off a few remaining 39 and 40 play balls needed. Maury Arnovich among them. Adding to the Dick Bartell was Blondie Ryan from the 1936 Diamond Stars set. Still no 34 Goudeys, though. The dealer said he knew a guy. With all the trappings of a Sopranos extra, the guy said, "Hey, you gotta go see Stan. Tell him Anthony sent you. He's got everything." So we noted the booth number and thanked him for the cards and the recommendation. A first few impressions. First, T206 cards are becoming rare for those of us who prefer them in their natural state, free from graded slabbery. I had great luck with every other set, but the T206s were nearly all slabbed up. Also, Bryce Harper rookies were curiously absent from cases. There were Otanis, Sotos, and Trouts for days, but no Harpers. Not any. Also, autographs really seemed to be taking over. Cases had more autos than not, and most of the gawking I saw was focused on the autographed items. Early on, I found prices were reasonable, dealers were willing to work if you bought multiple items, and negotiations were fun and easygoing. This didn't last, as we ran into several real stonewalls whose prices weren't connected to any reality the rest of us were living in, and what's worse is they were jerks about it. Oh, you want $60 for an ungraded 50s Bowman Common in unremarkable condition? A mere 10 times what every other table is charging? Good luck, buddy. It was great to see some of the oddball early cards, like random stacks of E220 cards, which I never see at the shows in my area of the country. Along with the eye candy most of us only ever read about, like this T206 Sherry McGee error, which I had never seen in person. 33 grand seems downright reasonable. I had been so distracted by the pretty cards that I hadn't yet found any Harpers for the kid. This is usually my first task at shows, but I allowed selfishness to overcome my fatherly responsibilities. So we took a brief foray from vintage flipping to dig through some discount boxes. While I usually only get one Harper, Pop-Pop was with me, and Pop-Pop splurged for the kid. I found some other cool stuff there too, like a Topps Chrome Chase Utley rookie. With the kid taken care of, off we marched into the increasing crowds. Like a kid at a candy store window, I stopped to drool a bit at an autographed 1949 Bowman Robin Roberts rookie, and some Jackies, and some hot babes too.
Don't be jealous that I've been chatting with babes all day.
Several hours in, and we had still yet to find any 34 Gaudy high numbers, and we had still yet to see any Harper rookies. I was really hoping to find the 661A Red Helmet flagship card, but I didn't see any. I did eventually find the Bowman Prospects card, which I'll add to the Harper rookie run, currently under assembly. But for $10, this was small potatoes. All was well, until we needed to pee. The IX Center was nice, but there were tens of thousands of guys there, lots of beer on tap, and only one bathroom. Some reports were up to an hour wait to relieve oneself. I didn't have to wait an hour, but every pee break was at least a 30-minute affair, so we kept the beer and coffee to a minimum. Several more stops and hours of flipping later, I was still skunked out of the 34 Gaudy high numbers and no T206s that I needed. As the lights flickered and they announced last call for the day, I snuck in one more buy, some upgrades to the 52 Bowman set with some beautifully pristine examples of Smokey Burgess, Pudd'nhead Jones, and Eddie Wakus, and he threw in a 65 Topps Giant Jim Bunning along with it, the last Phil's card needed from that set too. Like cockroaches when you turn on the light, 8 p.m. came and everyone bolted to the exits, scurrying along desperately looking for the shuttles that were promised but didn't seem to exist, trying to get Ubers through ridiculous surge pricing and wait times, or bribing anyone with a car to give us a ride, which, no joke, we had to do. A quick bite and right to bed. There endeth the first day. Bright and early the next morning, we fought the staggering traffic, still searching for the non-existent shuttles, and literally resorting to abandoning our Uber out on the highway to walk the last mile to the IX Center amongst the utter gridlock. Fighting our way again through the long lines to enter, to again burst forth into endless baseball card heaven. We had worked through the main room already, and made notes of where we wanted to return, but it was time to go see Stan. Stan's vintage cards was no joke. I'd like to say he had everything, but he had a lot nonetheless. I told him Anthony Insenasova, and he warmed immediately. First up, Stan, do you have any 1934 Gaudy high numbers? And like a burst of sunlight on a cloudy day, out popped George Darrow. I was so excited that the picture I took is all blurry. He did not have the Dolph Camilli, though. Camilli played for the Phillies for 3 years, and the 34 Gaudy is his rookie. He was traded to the Dodgers and eventually won the MVP in 1941 while leading the Dodgers to the pennant with 34 home runs. The search would have to continue. Apart from the Dolph, Stan helped me run right down the checklist, and we were able to bang out 5 of the remaining 1940 play balls, including the Chuck Klein, of which he had 6 copies, and the 2 remaining 39 play balls. Wally Millies and Bill Atwood are tough high numbers in the 40 set, and Stan had multiple copies of each of those too. So I got my pick of the litter. We came to a package deal, a fair price for all involved, and with a hearty handshake I departed with nearly all of my vintage holes filled. Only the Dolph remained. Along with the Dolph, I was still skunked out of Harper rookies too. Near the autograph pavilion, where collectors were waiting in hours-long lines to pay hundreds of dollars each for autographs they could easily buy on eBay for far less money, I finally broke through in a casual conversation with a fellow showgoer who assumed I was a Phillies fan because of my shirt led to a pair of 661 Harper rookies, both the Screaming and Blue Helmet variations in SGC 10s coming out of his Pelican case. I was looking for PSAs, but I didn't see a one. The SGC 10 cards are super low pop, 4 and 6 respectively, with none higher. Plus, if you're a fan of Antiques Roadshow, you know you don't have two of something, you have a pair, which adds value. We went back and forth on price, but ultimately agreed on $135 for the pair. So I went for it and locked up the pair of Harpers, patted myself on the back, and soldiered on with the diligent continued search for the Dolph. Along the way, I found a 36 Diamond Stars Jimmy Wilson, leaving only one card remaining in that set, but that guy didn't have the Dolph either. He did have a 52 Bowman Ashburn, so I snagged that for good measure. He also had some beautiful 1950 Cracker Jacks, and I was so close to buying this one for $450, but that would have been pretty much the rest of my card show budget, so I chose to take the Wilson and the Ashburn and left the Cracker Jack to live another day. Discount bins were aplenty, allowing an easy assembly of the 2024 Topps Series 2 set and some autographs of my childhood favorites, including Juan Samuel and Jim Eisenreich. It was mid-afternoon on the second day, and we had finally been through the whole show. That's how big the show was. It took a day and a half to see each table. Not stop at each table, but at least walk by each table and see what they have. Dolph Camilli still eluded me, but it was time to turn my focus to some set upgrades. So we returned to a dealer I had noted the day before who had a gazillion cards meticulously organized, all in albums, all in number order, all with prices connected to reality. There I upgraded my 52 Topps Swish Nicholson, a 61 Choo Choo Coleman, a 62 Eddie Keegan, and a few other 60s and 70s commons too. I even found a really nice example of a 67 high number, card 587, the NL Rookie Stars card. While there, I noticed a 40 play ball of Grover Cleveland Alexander, Old Pete in this case. Now, this isn't a playing days card, but it is one of the very few cards of his ever made. I was able to put a package together with all the upgrades along with the Alexander, and shook hands with the dealer, all smiles. Another big upgrade came next with the 52 Bowman color Robin Roberts. I have proudly shown my Roberts on this channel before, despite it having been run over by a truck. It represents an earlier stage of my collecting when I really couldn't afford a better one. It was a long time coming, but my Roberts is now a crispy minter. And he came with some crispy friends too, upgrading a few others from that set. Digging deep, I took some leads and found specific dealers recommended by other specific dealers who might have had a Dolph tucked away. This honed search did turn up a second George Darrow, and using my own philosophy of if you find a high number at a good price, you buy it, I bought a second George Darrow. It was actually cheaper than the first one and in better condition. As for the Dolph, still no luck. But one of the guys who didn't have the Dolph did have a stack of Diamond Stars hidden away, which excitingly spit up this Ethan Allen, completing another set. This dealer was old and grumpy. His prices were high, and he insisted on $60 for this card. With the staining, I wanted to be more about $40, but this was the only Diamond Stars Ethan Allen we saw at the whole show. I had no other option. So, $60 it is for a dirty one to serve as a placeholder for a while, until I can find a better example. Running low on time and money, I stopped back to snag a T206 Sherry McGee bat on shoulder that I had passed on the previous day, hoping to find a better one. Hint, I didn't. For $40, I'm okay with the dirt and the crease. Same with the Mickey Doolin glove card. Neither of those guys had the 34 Dolph either. I was getting tired and hungry and thirsty. Needing an hour to pee in this place, I had kept the water to a minimum. There was under an hour of floor time left, and we began to make our way towards the exit. On the way out, I nicked 2 more autographs, including another 64 Topps Giant Jim Bunning to go along with the unautographed example obtained the previous day. Close to the finish line and the final table of the show for me was
Chris Sewell here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer in that order.
Nice guy. He did not have the 34 Gaudy Dolph Camilli though, and he had no recommendations on where to find it. He was the Alamo. The battle was lost. Just for the novelty of buying a card from a YouTube legend, I snagged from him my last card of the show, a 72 Carlton, the one before he was traded. We chatted for a brief moment, and off I went, defeated by a 1934 Gaudy high number, but victorious in all other arenas. There endeth the second day, there endeth the National. Laid out, it was a good haul of cards. Stacked up, it was a good haul of cards. My list, beaten and battered from 2 days in the sweaty pocket of my trusty companion, had nearly everything crossed off. The crowds were heavy, but manageable. The lines were long, but tolerable. The dealers were tough, but reasonable. Except for that one guy who wanted $60 for a mid-grade off-center Bowman Common. Yeah, screw that guy. What an experience for this lifelong collector to dip my toes into card heaven and disassociate from the rest of the world for just a little while. They say if you can't find it at the National, it doesn't exist. So I can definitively say the 1934 Goudey Dolph Camilli, card 91, doesn't exist. Can't win them all. But now I have an excuse to go next year. And maybe you'll join me there too. Thanks for watching. The National is a fantastic place to explore. Tune in next time for more baseball card stories, legends, and lore.